is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back with you on this beautiful Sunday night, 4 minutes to the top of the hour of 11 p.m. That we do come to you live from Uganda. It's been a beautiful Sunday in all aspects and respects, other than footballing wise, because Arsenal have lost the Carabao Cup final, losing by 2 goals to nil against Manchester City. It looks like the student is not much for the master as things stand. So that game has ended at 2-0. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about Newcastle's defeat against Sunderland in the Trainware Derby. We'll get to talk about the Madrid Derby. That one is getting underway in just a couple of minutes. It should be kicking off. In fact, the starting 11s are already out for the Madrid Derby, and let me quickly run through them before we even proceed any further. But allow me have audios tested just to be sure everything checks out. Oh, come on. Just let myself down with that one. So yeah, I'm trying to have our audios tested just to be sure everything checks out. But I hope you've had a wonderful day. I hope you've had a wonderful day. Excuse me. Wow. Anyways, we'll be talking about Mikel Arteta's is it complacency? Is it mistake? Is it overconfidence? Is it trust that did not pay off? So we'll be talking about that and more in this broadcast. Then soon on the channel we'll be introducing membership, super chat and things like that. We are hoping, that's the hope really, that we'll be introducing it in the coming days or weeks. That's if everything goes according to plan or according to wish. But yeah, I hope you guys are all good. Like I said, we'll start with the starting lineups for the Madrid Derby. In that regard, in the wake of the Madrid Derby that gets underway in just a couple of minutes, I'm supposed to be getting my screen ready for that game. Hi everyone, for those of you that are just joining us, good evening to you. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert K. Sakos is my name. I come to you live from Kampala, Uganda. Can see there's 24 of you. Please like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel and help support what we do. Sechito Hassan says, how are you guys? We're good. How are you, Mr. Sechito Hassan? Where are you joining us from? So in terms of the Madrid Derby, like I told you previously, Thibaut Courtois has an injury, so do not expect to see him in this game. So it's Andre Lunin in goal, Danny Carvajal at right back, Antonio Rudiger, Dean Howson, Fran Garcia. Beverly Win says, hi Beverly. Where are you joining us from, Beverly? Hope you're doing okay. So Antonio Rudiger, Dean Howson, Fran Garcia, Fede Valverde, Tchouaméni, Thiago Pina, Adagula, Vinicius Junior, and Brahim Diaz. That's how Real Madrid have set themselves up for this Madrid Derby at the Santiago Bernabeu. I'm all right, Beverly. How about you? Where are you joining us from? Your name sounds. I don't want to sort of categorize you, but it sounds American. Maybe just because I've heard of Beverly Hills, that's why I make the relation. But I hope you're doing good. Then on the side of Atletico de Madrid, they have Joan Mosso, they have David Henkel, Ruben Lee Nomad, Marcos Llorente, Matteo Ruggeri, Ademola Lookman, Johnny Cardoso, Koke, Giuliano Simeone, Julian Alvarez, and Antoine Griezmann. Guna says, I was right. I knew we would lose. And now my wish is in severe. And now my wrist is in severe pain because I think I just cracked it after punching a wall. Sorry about that, Guna. It's football. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Beverly Wynn says, my name is Skylar. Hi, Skylar, if that is your name. So, okay, quickly, guys, as we look to get that to wait for that game to get underway between Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid. Let's talk about Arsenal losing today against Manchester City. What did you guys make of the game? What are your thoughts about the teams as were selected? First of all, I thought Manchester City had a very, very brilliant attack. I thought their midfield was okay. I thought their defense, I thought was, average. I thought it was one that Arsenal could get at, but unfortunately, they did not. I think Arsenal had one clear-cut chance in the opening half, that one that fell to Kai Havertz and James Trafford saved, so they did not make it count. And then, in a game of small margins, you ought to take your chances when and as of when they come. Manchester City did not have hundreds of chances. They had two chances, one gifted to them by the goalkeeper, and the other, of course, the goalkeeper I thought should have done better. Not in just saving the ball, but in intercepting the ball before it even gets to Nico Riley. So his entire game reading when it came to crosses was really, really poor. That was my observation on that part. So what was your observation on that side? So Skylar, let us know where you're joining us from. But yeah, the game is underway between Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid. It is at the Santiago Bernabeu. Remember, the first leg ended 5-2 in victory for Atletico de Madrid. So Alvaro Arbeloa hopefully can inspire our team in Real Madrid to the perfect revenge against Diego Simeone's side. But in terms of the final itself, in terms of how Arsenal fared, I thought in the first half, they did really okay. I thought it was a sort of, you're doing good, thank you. I thought it was a balanced game. Neither side gave away too much. I thought Manchester City defended really, really well, as did Arsenal when they needed to. But it was the second half that it changed everything. And that's when the goals came. But particularly, for me, I'll take blame to Mikel Arteta. First of all, in his team selection. Now, I understand wanting to give your best goalkeeper, your substitute goalkeeper, an opportunity to play in a final for a competition that he's been part of. I sort of understand that. But on the other side, if you're desperate enough that you want to win it, at least as his facial expression was showing on the touchline, you must be intentional on leaving nothing to chance. For those of you that remember, when I was doing the preview for this game, I said the stage was too big in a game too important for either side to afford any complacency. And I said Mikel Arteta could not afford to play his number 2 goalkeeper in the final. That if he was desperate enough, if he was hungry enough to try and win it, to try and win his first piece of silverware in 6 years, then he needed to play his number 1 goalkeeper in David Raya. For those of you that remember that when I was giving my predicted starting 11, I went with David Raya. Beverly says, I like M and MS. Okay, that's good. So that's what I said, and I was sort of exonerated as soon as that first goal went in. I was exonerated, or at least I felt exonerated, because some things you can almost see them play out. And for example, the selection of Kai Havertz, I can understand because it's forced on him. Why? Because he's without his playmaker in the captain, in Martin Odegaard. 2, his other playmaker in Ebeleche Eze got a calf injury in that sort of midweek game against Bayer Leverkusen, So it's understandable that his hands were sort of tied on. His hands were tied on that one. You say I'm eating M and MS right now. M and MS, what's that? Macaroni and cheese, what's that? Anyways, so you felt that in that selection, it was okay. When it came to his right back, Ben White, who literally struggled, particularly in the second half against Jeremy Doku, who I thought had a brilliant game. Ryan Chaki as well, I thought they had a good game. Nathan Ake, I thought he did well. Kushanov did well. Nico O'Reilly, man of the match performance. You say it's a candy, okay, good. good performance. But Erling Haaland, no, it was an average performance. He came up against the big boys in William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes, and I thought they sort of matched him for everything that he attempted to do and managed to keep him out or at bay. Then when you look at Anton Semenyo, he was average for me, given based on the Anton Semenyo that we've seen back at Bournemouth and ever since he joined Manchester City. His performance today was no different from what he had against against Real Madrid in the first leg at the Santiago Bernabeu. Basically, that was it. So really, that's what it felt like. On the part of Arsenal, I thought Declan Rice had a really, really good game, particularly in that first half. I thought he had a good game. And even in the second half, you felt he was the guy fighting for it all. I don't know how many interventions he participated in. And then in the second half, of course, after a very spirited fight in the first half from both sides, because it went into halftime goalless, Manchester City came out much the better side in the second half. They dominated possession, and they did not just dominate possession for the sake of having the ball. They really, really pressed Arsenal. They put in crosses. That sort of pass and pinpoint pass into the final third, you felt was lacking because Arsenal had defended really, really well because it was a good final, even though clear-cut chances fell far between, Okay, 10 United Road 10 says, Erling is a long-term concern. I think he isn't scoring and doesn't offer much else. That's his submission. Beverly says, I have had 10 bags. Okay. 10 bags of candy. Wow. I can't tell you to watch your sugar. It is you. You see, okay. And you have more 10 bags. So guys, we'll be introducing membership. Like I've said, if all goes well, we'll be introducing membership, super chat, things like that, so that you guys can go on and support the channel. If you feel the need, if you have with it in you, if you have the means and things like that, I'm really, really hoping that will be the case, that if everything goes according to plan, possibly before the end of the starting week. That's the objective, at least thus far. Now, you love candy? Okay. So really, in terms of the performance, like I said, in the second half, for the majority part of the second half, Manchester City were by far the better side. Arsenal struggled to get out. Really, they defended really well. They did not have anybody's up front. So every time they cleared the ball away, Manchester City committed their back three players in Matheus Nunes, I think, Kushanov and Nathan Ake at the sort of the center arc kind of area. So every time Arsenal cleared the ball and it went up front, those three were there waiting to, win the possession back and put it to the likes of Bernardo Silva, the likes of Rodri, to go back at Arsenal. And in the end, you know what they say, that when you squeeze the nose hard enough, eventually it bleeds. So they squeezed Arsenal hard enough that Arsenal eventually bled. And the bleeding of Arsenal came through their goalkeeper, Kepa Arrizabalaga. That's why I kicked off this conversation by saying that, for me, Mikel Arteta is to blame for the loss. In part, not entirely, but in part, because, even the 11 players that he put on the pitch should have done better. Then Piero Hincapié, I thought he had an average performance, particularly as soon as he got that yellow card. You felt that he wasn't overly committing to his challenges, to his physical duels. He played with a bit of reservation, wanting not to risk it to get a second booking and have his team reduced to 10 men. Which I thought was the wise thing to do, but it sort of got to his head in a bit. It got to his head, and I do not want to blame him for that, because that was a sign or a show of conscience that he knows that the stage is too big and the game is too important for me to cost my team by getting sent off and possibly costing them to lose the game. Oh, wow. Fede Valverde has just hit the base of the upright. He went on a scintillating run and his attempt hit the base of the upright. It's still goalless between Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid. After 9 minutes played. So that was my feeling about Piero Hincapié. Kepa Arrizabalaga, like I said, for me, he's the guy that cost Arsenal the game. Having said that, it was always going to be a big game, a big stage. And by the way, he's lost now all four finals that he's played in at Wembley. And he played in the 2018-2019 Carabao Cup final. Meanwhile, Andre Lunin just denied Atletico de Madrid. So, Kepa Arrizabalaga has lost all four cup finals that he's played in at Wembley. 2018-2019, they played Man City in the Carabao Cup final. You remember when he defied the orders of Mauricio Sarri to be withdrawn off for Willy Caballero to come on before the penalty shootouts. So they lost that one. 2020-2021, they lost the FA Cup final. Let me try to remember. Was that the time Liverpool won it? I don't remember exactly, but he lost. Then 2021-2022, he was in that Chelsea side that lost the Carabao Cup final to Chelsea. It was 10-11 on penalties. Yes, post-match penalties. And guess what? He's the one that took the 11th penalty for Chelsea and put it wide of the mark. So Liverpool won 10-11 on penalties. And now today, he's cost Arsenal a piece of silverware because of poor judgments. How do I put this? I don't want to call it complacency, but it's not being good enough. It's just not good enough. And it's the reason he's the number 2 and not number 1 goalkeeper. Because the sort of mistakes that he made today, you'd think David Raya would not do that. Why? Because I thought he did not deal well with crosses. He never came out for them. Oftentimes, when Manchester City put in the crosses, they reached they either went across untampered, or they went outside, or they met a Manchester City player, or Arsenal defenders cleared. He did not really command that box. He did not come out for those crosses. So you look, for example, at the goal, the first goal that Arsenal conceded. It's his mistake. A cross is brought in. I don't remember the Manchester City player that was bringing in the cross, but a cross is brought in, and instead of punching it over the bar, or maybe outside for a corner or anything in that regard, he decided to try and catch it. And yet, he was not tall enough to catch it. So it falls loose. And guess who was there? Nico O'Reilly. He heads home. Then the second goal, again, a cross is brought in because he lacked the command in the area. He does not come out for the cross. The backline, the defense does not deal with it. And Nico O'Reilly is once again there. He heads home, and it's 2-0. And basically, that's how Arsenal lost the final. Did they deserve to lose? Eventually, they deserve to lose. Because, like I said, they did not play very well in the second half. They did not create enough chances. Even though they had more attempts on goal. Because when you look at the statistics, Manchester City dominated possession to the tune of 63% compared to Arsenal's 37%. Arsenal had a total of 7 shots on goal compared to Manchester City's 10. 3 were on target for the Arsenal, only 2 for Manchester City, and those were the 2 goals. So the mere fact that Manchester City had only 2 shots on target shows you how Arsenal had been very, very disciplined in their defensive duties. They had been really, really disciplined. But they were let down by their goalkeeper, who was not good enough on the evening. Then on the other side, James Trafford stood tall when he was called into action, particularly in that moment in the first half when he's forced into a save by Kai Havertz. His game reading was spot on. He came out and dealt with that. Then there was a header, I think, was it by Carafiori? I think so, that he dealt with. Then in the second half, Carafiori had an attempt on goal. I don't know if Victor Gyökeres got his, the brushes of his boot to it, but it went and kissed sort of the base of the upright before going wide or out. Then Gabriel Maguire's header, I think this was off a free kick or a corner kick or something, hit the crossbar, and so really those were the only 3 sort of key moments or chances that you can remember when Arsenal were close to scoring, but it was never meant to be. So the question is, what are the implications of this? For me, first of all, the implications. The first implication is that Manchester City win the Carabao Cup final. That's Pep Guardiola's 5th Carabao Cup. He won the other 4 in 2018, 19, 20, and 2021. So then 2, it also means he has never lost the Carabao Cup final. Yes, Pep Guardiola has never lost the Carabao Cup final. 2. So 3. Yes, 2. It means actually 3. So Man City have won. Pep has never lost the Carabao Cup final. 3. Pep Guardiola has now won 40 major trophies, 19 of them coming at Manchester City in the 10 years he's been there. 4th, it means that Manchester City cannot go trophyless this season. So they have already a piece of silverware. Last season, they went trophyless as they did in his debut campaign 2016-2017. So those are the implications on Manchester City's side. But lastly, the 6th for me, on the side of Manchester City, is that it is really, really good for their confidence. Why? First of all, they are still in the FA Cup, where they have to play Liverpool at the quarterfinals at Anfield in the aftermath of the international break that is going to start tomorrow. 2, they are still in the Premier League title race. Yes. I say this confidently, that they are still in the Premier League title race. Why? Because mathematically, they can still win it. Mathematically, the only teams that cannot win it are Liverpool and the teams below Liverpool. Mathematically. The others still have a chance, but particularly for Manchester City. And I keep saying this, and I'll say it again. It is not in their hands. It is Arsenal's title to lose, because they have a 6-point lead, essentially, effectively. Currently it's 9 points, but Manchester City have a game in hand. So the assumption, and I know I've been accused of, you use the assumptions on Manchester City, can't you use them about Arsenal? The same way I make them about Manchester City is the same way they can be correct about Arsenal. So assuming Manchester City were to win that game in hand, they would cut that 9-point deficit to 6. Then in the aftermath of the international break, after playing Liverpool, they'll play. Of course, Arsenal will have duties in the UEFA Champions League in the subsequent 2 weeks. Arsenal will then, after playing Southampton, they will play Sporting Lisbon away in Portugal. Then they will play AFC Bournemouth in the Premier League. Then when they play in the Premier League, after playing Bournemouth, they will then play Sporting Lisbon in the reverse fixture of the quarterfinals of the UEFA Champions League. And then, mark these words, and then we'll play away to Manchester City. So if you're Man City, and let's say you win your game in hand against Crystal Palace, their first game in the Premier League after the international break should be, I think, against Chelsea. Chelsea is a very beatable side. Looks like Liam Morasini cannot organize his team to beat up against any big team. All the big games, he's lost. I'm not sure even Newcastle qualified to be big. Everton shouldn't be a big game, but he's lost those two consecutively. Prior to that, he had lost to Arsenal. He lost to PSG home and away. So really, he's having it really, really hard to beat up against the big boys. So it gives you confidence if you're a Manchester City fan, looking at the kind of shape that Chelsea are currently in, to know that we can go and beat up against this Chelsea side. They're shambolic. They're all over the place. Meanwhile, Atletico Madrid have had a forced substitution of is it a forced substitution or is he going to come back? Marcos Llorente there. Okay, it's not a forced substitution. They are still assessing Marcos Llorente to see if he can come back and play. So, like I say, so in other words, if they win the game in hand, all factors kept constant, that means Arsenal beat Bournemouth, then they go to the Etihad Stadium. If Man City were to beat Arsenal, it would put them within 3 points behind Arsenal, essentially. So, in other words, that is with 6 games left to play, with ideally 5 games left to play. So, with 5 games left to play, again, if they win that game at the Etihad Stadium, it puts more pressure, or it puts more pressure on this Arsenal side to cause them to falter. It doesn't mean to say it's a given that they will falter. It simply means that they keep up the pressure. They keep the pressure on, to push this Arsenal side to try and get it over the line, So the question is going to be back to Arsenal. Can you get it over the line? Because it is your title to lose. You have a 6-point lead, essentially. Or at least for now, you have a 9-point lead. But can you make it count? In the remaining 7 games for Arsenal, the mathematics is simple. They can afford to drop as many as 6 points. How? Win 4 of the remaining 7 and make 3 draws. That will give you a total of about 15 points. That's what Arsenal need to win the league title. And regardless of what Manchester City do with that mathematics, they still do not win. Basically, that's the math for the Arsenal. So, those are the implications of today's victory for Manchester City. Now, on the Arsenal side, as the losers, first of all, they missed a great opportunity to win a piece of silverware, their first piece of silverware in 6 years. That's 1. 2, they've lost against the side with whom they are in contention with for 2 other titles. The same way Manchester City are still in the FA Cup is the same way Arsenal are still in it. So the two could still meet along the way. Whether at the semi-finals or in the finals, I do not know. Fate will decide that. But you've lost to a side for whom you're competing the titles for. You're still competing with the same side for the Premier League title. So it's the same side that you've lost to. Now, that does dent your confidence in a way, because he's the guy that is putting you under pressure, particularly in the Premier League. So, like I said, Arsenal have missed a trophy. 2, they've lost to a title rival. 3, it puts them under more pressure now because, like I said, the conversation of the quadruple was always there. And I said, the more competitions you're involved in, the higher your chances are to win a piece of silverware. And what was true for Manchester City was also true for the Arsenal, that you're all still chasing. That was before Manchester City were knocked out of the UEFA Champions League. And for those of you that remember, I went on the channel, I did a video on the channel talking about whether Manchester City's exit from the UEFA Champions League could turn out to be a blessing in disguise. Now, unfortunately, not so many people of you have watched it because it only has about 44 views. But fair enough. in those 44, sorry, in those 10 minutes, or close to 11 minutes, because it's 2 seconds shy of 11 minutes. In those 11 minutes, I outlay the context of Manchester City and what an early exit from the UEFA Champions League means to them. Now, you remember I've talked about the game they have to play against Arsenal on the 19th of April. It will essentially mean that while Arsenal play against Sporting CP, Manchester City will have a week's rest until that game. Whereas it does not guarantee that Manchester City win that very game, what it implies is that it gives them a whole week's period of preparation and rest and recuperation. And we know how good that can be for a team that wants to go on and win. It's a factor that we mentioned in the wake of Chelsea before they played their game against Everton. It's a factor that we mentioned before Liverpool went away to Brighton and Hove Albion. Look what happened. They both lost. Look at Sunderland. They went away to St. James's Park against a tired Newcastle that had played away in in Barcelona on Tuesday and lost terribly 7-2, and they beat them by 2-1, coming from a goal down to win it 2-1 in the Trainware Derby. You know, it's a derby, a very, very fierce derby, by the way. So, we've seen Crystal Palace literally all throughout the entire campaign, that every time they played in Europe and come back domestically, they've struggled. Tottenham Hotspurs suffered the same fate, even though for Tottenham Hotspurs, it's inexcusable. They lost by 3-0 against Nottingham Forest, a fellow relegation battling side. Now, why it's not true for Tottenham Hotspurs is their day's opponent had equally played during midweek. In fact, Tottenham played on Wednesday, Nottingham Forest played on Thursday against Midtjylland in the UEFA Europa League. They managed to advance, and I think they're going to be up against FC Porto in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Europa League. Tottenham, on the other side, had won against Atletico de Madrid by 3-2, which you thought it was a hard-fought win, one that they deserved, and that they would come into this game against Nottingham Forest with this sort of same spirit to try and win it, or later on avoid at least losing. But they got smashed by 3-0. Igor Thiago, Morgan Gibbs-White, and Timothy Awoni, I think. So really, it is a big factor that when you have a well-rested team, really your weekend's opponent had played a game in midweek, regardless of the competition, but it becomes more important when it is the Champions League, because usually your opponent may have played away from home, which will be true for a case of Arsenal. It will be true. No. Yes, sometimes they may have played away from home. Only that this time around, Arsenal will have played from home, because remember, the reverse fixture is at home. But nonetheless, all the starting players in that game against Sporting CP will be the same players that will be called to action against Manchester City, a well-rested Manchester City inside a noisy, Etihad Stadium, one beaming with confidence because they have just beaten you at Wembley. They feel a title is at risk or is on the line, or at least they want to put you under pressure so they can do it again. Why not do it again? Prior to today, Manchester City or Pep Guardiola had gone 6 games without beating Mikel Arteta, and he could beat him twice in a space of a month. So that's the implication. So in terms of the implications for the Arsenal in this game today is that they've lost a piece of silverware. They've lost to an opponent with whom they are still in title races in other 2 competitions, in the FA Cup and the Premier League. We've talked about, the other is what it means for their confidence. Right now, they are low on confidence. Now, they need to pick themselves up and find rhythm again. Now, the one thing, because that today, by the way, that loss is also their 4th loss of the season. Now, the one thing that Arsenal have really, really been good at this season is bouncing back from losses. Prior to today, they had lost 3 games. And in losing 3 games, they lost to Liverpool, Aston Villa, and Manchester United. You can see that every time they've lost a game, they've gone on to a brilliant run of, more than 10 games without losing, So we are all going to be waiting to see how they pick themselves up in the wake of that defeat. I don't know if it is lucky or not, but I would say luckily for them, their first game will be a game of a little bit less pressure. They'll be playing Southampton in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. So we'll have to wait on that one. So then the other implication was the lack of standard performance from key players. Bukayo Saka, he did not stand tall today. He did not make a difference. He did not try to make a difference, in my opinion. Kai Havertz, Victor Gyökeres, no Arsenal player stood out to say, I'm here to win it for our team. I'm here to put it on the line. Like I said, Declan Rice for me had the best performance. And second to him was Gabriel and William Saliba. I thought they really, really, really did well. I remember watching the game, and when Arsenal, particularly after Arsenal had gone 2-0 down, and I'm thinking to myself, why doesn't Mikel Arteta withdraw Martin Zubimendi and put in fresh legs in that midfield? And more so an attacking player, because I wanted him to play with a single pivot, Declan Rice to stay there. But among the changes he made, and perhaps he's exonerated, but not entirely, is that he takes off Ben White for an attacking player. I think it was Gabriel Jesus. And then Declan Rice went to right back. And once he went to right back, he dealt really, really well with Jeremy Doku and whoever else wanted to use that channel. I thought he did tremendously well. And it felt like a good thing. So, but for me, I would have opted for Martin Zubimendi to be out because he had grown tired in the game, which is normal. It's a final. It's a high tempo. You're against a good Manchester City side. You've not had majority of the ball. You've been sort of chasing shadows in some cases. Trying to your very best to win the ball back. So basically, it was that. So those are the implications of that defeat for Arsenal on the other side. The game between Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid, after half an hour played, is still goalless. Both sides are still trying to find the breakthrough. Real Madrid have had the better chances, but none has been made to count. We had Fede Valverde hit the best of the upright when he went on his beautiful run. So those are the implications for that. But also, there's a video I want to take you guys back to. It's a video I did about Arsenal. And again, it's on the channel under the video section. It talks about my worry about Arsenal for the remainder of this season. And among the issues that I mentioned in that video was something to do with fatigue and injuries. But I wanted to focus on injuries. That if they are to see out the remainder of the season in great fashion or in brilliant fashion, they may want to avoid injuries to key players. Ebeleche Eze, until today, was one of the most informed Arsenal players. He seemed to have finally struck gold, hit his stride, beautiful cutback from Fede Valverde, but there's nobody to tap that one in. Wow, it stays goalless. So in that video, I talked about injuries. And I remember at the time, only Mikel Merino was injured, I think. I think even Martin Odegaard, because this is a video that we put out on the 6th of March. So in other words, almost or just slightly over 2 weeks ago. So already you have Mikel Merino out injured. You have Martin Odegaard out injured. You have Julian Timber out injured. You have Ebeleche Eze. Now, all these are starters. Meanwhile, it's a goal. Ademola Lookman has scored to give Atletico de Madrid the lead. Wow, that was some poor defending from this Real Madrid defense of Antonio Rudiger and Dean Howson. That's some poor defending, really. Oh my God. He should be doing better. They should be doing better in that moment. This is the same Atletico de Madrid that was struggling against Tottenham Hotspur. Oh, is that Giuliano Simeone? What a cheeky assist that is. Backflip. It's not even looking there. Back flicks it to Ademola Lookman, who scores a brilliant goal. Here they come again. Oh. He was signed from Atalanta in January, but he's been quite a decent servant thus far. Hi, Raymond says hi, Eddie. He says hi, Ed Howe sacked from Newcastle United now, and Francesco Farioli appointed as the manager for Newcastle now from Ray. Hi, Raymond. Raymond Kangumba is a Newcastle fan. I forget where he joins us from every single day, but at least he's become a regular on this channel, even though he doesn't spend too long with us, but he's become a regular on this channel. He's of the view that Newcastle get rid of Ed Howe and appoint Francesco Farioli, who is with the, I think, FC Porto over there in Portugal. So anyways, so for me, those were the key takeaways about this Arsenal side. But like I was telling you about that video, you can go over to the channel and look for it under the video section. The title is My Worry About Arsenal for the Remainder of the Season. And Arsenal have this sort of precedent. I don't want to call it a tradition because a tradition is something that you intentionally do. But they have this bad luck where when they exit one trophy in a month, they end up exiting all other trophies within a space of a month or within that very month. Now, fortunately for them, this was at the final, so it's a bit different. It's not elimination. They've just not won it. They're still in the FA Cup quarterfinals against Southampton and in the UEFA Champions League. That game against Sporting CP is not going to be a walkover. It's not going to be a walk in the park. It's going to be as difficult as they can. And when the Champions League gets at the quarterfinals, I do not think we still have what pass for surprises of teams getting knocked out, because the teams that get to the quarterfinals, first of all, are worthy and capable of winning it. But it does not negate the fact that still in the quarterfinals, some teams are bigger than others. It can also be true in the final. For example, whereas last year's final, PSG was simply better than Inter Milan. When you look at Barcelona versus Atletico de Madrid, Barcelona just better. The top of La Liga, they have the pedigree, they have won the competition 5 times. Atletico de Madrid have never won it. It's that simple. When you look at Bayern Munich versus Real Madrid, Bayern Munich seem to be in better form on all fronts. But it does not mean that Real Madrid have better history than twice the history they have in the competition. So really, that's the point I'm trying to make. So it's possible that Sporting CP knock out Arsenal. I'm not saying that's what is going to happen. Nor am I saying it's my prediction. But for those of you that have supported you Arsenal for quite some time, you'll know that Sporting CP knocked them out of the 2022. of the UEFA Europa League. This should have been either 2023 or 2021, around that period. Because when they won the FA Cup in 2018, they qualified for the UEFA Europa League. So, come on. Yes, it was in 2023. The first leg in Lisbon ended 1-1. Sorry, ended 2-2. Then the second leg ended 1-1. And then they went into a penalty shootout, and Sporting CP went through 5-3 on penalties. So that's the sort of memory that I wanted to drive you to. That anything is possible, anything is really, really possible. So it's not a given. But yeah, how soon Arsenal pick themselves up from that defeat is what will define the remainder of the season. And by picking themselves up, I mean picking up some consecutive wins. At least actually not 2 or 3, at least 4. For example, go beat Southampton and not just beating them, try and win it convincingly, try and send a message. Go to Sporting Lisbon, away in Portugal. It's not an easy place to go to. It's not an easy game, but win it regardless, or do everything you can to win it, even if it is by a 0-0. Return at home, Bournemouth, bite tooth and nail to win that fixture, because if it ends in a draw, then Manchester City win, trust me, you're not going to want the narrative that will be online or in the media. Then after that, bite tooth and nail to win the reverse fixture against Sporting CP and move to the semi-finals of the UEFA Champions League. That will be my wish for you. And then when you go to the Etihad Stadium, if you have beaten up against Bournemouth, you will, even if you go to the Etihad Stadium and draw, not that you should play for a draw, you won't be, quote unquote, you won't be under a barrage of media negative coverage. So today the question many people are asking, or the narrative many people want to drive, is that Arsenal bottled it. I don't want to look at it that way. First of all, by the fact that you get yourself into the final, I believe you've shown you're good enough, and I don't call it bottling. It's bottling if you're leading by 2-0 in the final and then you lose it. Then you bottled it. But if you're leading by 0-0 and you lose 2-1, that's not bottling it. It's just the other team getting the better of you. It's just the competition. It is the nature of sport. So I don't think Arsenal bottled it. They've just lost the final. And it is what it is. So they need to pick themselves up. The beauty about it, which is also the bad side, is that it comes subsequent to an international break. That means it's what people are going to be talking about between now until the return of club football. 2, on the other side, the beauty of it is that you have players are going to be rested. Players are going to get some rest and sort of recuperate, and get themselves, try and forget that loss or move past it and ready themselves for the remainder of the season. Maybe by the end of the 2 weeks, you've welcomed back Ebeleche Eze. According to Mikel Arteta, they have to do another scan in a space of 6 to 7 days. That's within a week. By the way, that essentially means that Ebeleche Eze is out of the England's 35-man England squad that was summoned by Thomas Tuchel for the Japan and Uruguay international friendlies. So then the other thing is that maybe you have Odegaard back as well. So who knows? Maybe Jurriën Timber is back as well. I do not expect him to be going away for the international break. So the next 1.5 weeks of the international break could come in handy. They are 1.5 weeks because by Wednesday, the last lot of players is reporting back from international break and they're training and preparing for whatever the weekend holds for them. So that will be the hope for Arsenal. Of course, Mikel Merino you can't even talk about him returning. For those of you that managed to see him today, he had a strap to his foot. So it tells you how far out he is still in his recovery. Brahim Diaz forcing Antoine Griezmann into a timely intervention to prevent a cross in a cutback. Atletico de Madrid remain with a 1-0 lead. Okay. Allow us to leave that at that in respect to the Carabao Cup final. I think we've dedicated it enough time, more than 45 minutes, talking about that competition. So, and it's deservedly so because it was a final. We move on to the Premier League, where in the Premier League, West Ham lost to Aston Villa by 2-0. So, come on. So, moving on. Like I said, Aston Villa managed to beat West Ham by 2-0. So that's a huge victory for Aston Villa. They really needed it. On the backdrop of 2 consecutive victories in the UEFA Europa League, in which they beat Lille home and away by 1-0 and 2-0. That's in first by 1-0 and at home by 2-0. They really needed that because their form recently in the Premier League has been very stagnant or very poor. So a goal from their captain in John McGinn scored in the 15th minute. This one also scored he also scored in their 2-0 victory against Lille in midweek, a game that they managed to win by 2-0. So he scored in that game. Who was the other goal scorer? Trying to remember. Jordan Sancho provided the assist for John McGinn. I think the other was Oli Watkins. You know? So, in terms of the top 4 race, that's a very beautiful result for Unai Emery's side. They really needed that in terms of that result because Man United had sort of run out of their reach, creating a 4 points gap between them and this Villa side. So they needed any win in any form to get back to that bit of confidence that they can see out this top 4 race. But that beautiful goal from John McGinn, the way he places it to the far post, I mean, it just has that bend to the ball. And this was pure placing the ball into the far post where the West Ham goalkeeper could not get to it, Mads Hermansen, you know. But West Ham slept on the job because they started free kick, ball is passed to Sancho and he passes it to McKean and they watch on. And he puts it into he bends it in the back of the net. So that was as early as the 16th minute of the game. And then in the second half, of course, in the 68th minute, Oli Watkins scores to make it 2-0, and that's the game that won it. Now, it's a bad result for West Ham. West Ham is one of those teams that have had really good form recently, or at least ever since the start of the new year, particularly in their pursuit to avoid relegation. they do remain in the relegation zone, as we will see for the standings on the Premier League table. But Nuno Espirito Santo will know that that's a bad result. Meanwhile, the Madrid Derby has headed into halftime with Atletico Madrid leading by a goal to nil. That goal by Ademola Lookman is still the difference. Really? Huh. Okay. Ross Barkley scored in the last Premier League loss. By the way, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, against Man United. He scored against Man United, Ross Barkley. But it did not materialize to anything because they ended up losing by 3-1. So, anyways, West Ham had a couple of chances, but they could not make them count, and they got punished for their lapses in concentration in defense. So that's how they ended up losing by 2-0. But the goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen, is to blame here because he has sort of an attempt from Morgan Rogers that he parries in the direction of in sort of no man's land, and Ollie Watkins bounces on it and he scores, and it's 2-0. So, and he did that on another occasion in the game, receiving the ball or having the ball and then parrying it in danger zone. Goalkeepers must avoid doing that. Otherwise, you're going to get punished. Then in the Trainmoor Derby, Newcastle got beat by 2-1. Anthony Gordon scoring in the 10th minute, while Chamsden Derby in the 57th minute scored to restore parity, while Broby scored in the 90th minute to give Sunderland all 3 points at St. James's Park, where Sunderland fans needed police escorts to access St. James's Park, I remember Sunderland won the first leg by 0-0. So this is a very, very important game. You know how domestic derbies be or how they are, But Sunderland were trying to build from out of the back. Then they conceded possession, and they were punished because Nick Volkmada won the ball back and back. Anthony Gordon squad to give Newcastle the lead. But Newcastle, I was passively watching this game, but you could feel the sort of the fights that energy as a result of freshness wasn't there because they had a grilling performance against Barcelona. Aaron Ramsdale was called into action multiple times. Africa will never unite. Who is to blame for today's game? The coach or the goalkeeper? I think both. The coach has to take responsibility for choosing the goalkeeper, and then the goalkeeper does himself no wonders. In terms of what happened on the pitch, the goalkeeper is entirely to blame. But before what happens on the pitch gets started, the manager has to take blame. He makes the decision to play his number 2 goalkeeper in what he feels must be a must-win cup final, and he chose to go for sentimentalism as opposed to being ruthless. You're playing a cup final. Yes, he's the one that is being playing up to until the final. Yeah, you got the chance. You brought us thus far. Well and good. Now the stakes are higher. Our number 1 goalkeeper has to go in. It would have simply been that. I know Pep Guardiola played with his number 2 goalkeeper, but still, you're not Pep Guardiola. You've not won anything in 6 years. Pep Guardiola was looking for his 40th title and he got it, you know. So basically that's what it was. Oh, Aaron Ramsdale, what did you do? Newcastle failed to clear their lines and they ended up conceding. Ramsdale called into action on multiple occasions, but he will know that perhaps he might have done a little bit better in that equalizer in terms of where he puts the ball, in terms of punching it away. Meanwhile, Newcastle had a goal ruled out in that game that had been scored by Malik Thiaw. I don't know particularly why it was ruled out. I'm trying to find out why. But thank you so much, Africa will never unite for that. Let's see. I think, was it Dan Ban or Jacob Murphy? Who was that? I think it was Jacob Murphy. He was judged to have fouled the goalkeeper, so the goal did not stand. And then they go on the other side, Sunderland, in the 90th minute. Newcastle failed to defend, and Brian Brobby scores. I mean, that's some shambolic defending, really. The goalkeeper tried to scramble for it, but it just never paid off. So Sunderland won the Tranmere Derby, home and away, this season, because they won the first leg by 1-0. So, anyways, then the other fixture was between Tottenham Hotspurs losing to Nottingham Forest by 3-0. Like I told you, Nottingham Forest, I mean, in this fight against relegation, they seem to come out on top against Tottenham Hotspurs because it was a relegation derby that Tottenham Hotspurs needed not to lose, at least, but they ended up losing. And not just, forget this losing of where it's really, really close and you lose by 1-0 or by 2-1, that 1-goal margin. I get that. But losing by 3-0, that's nowhere near close. That's nowhere near close. So, it's nowhere near close. So they did not do themselves any favors. I'll be really, really surprised if by the end of the international break, Igor Tudor still has his job. I'll really, really be surprised. Meanwhile, I've made an observation with this Nottingham Forest side. Vitor Pereira seems to have trusted Omari Hudson. He started a good number of games ever since Vitor Pereira came to the club. Started a good number of games. And his performances are good. Yes, he does not score. He may not give you the assists, but, he gives them, he's quite a threat going forward, So Igor Jesus scored from the set piece, from a corner kick to give Nottingham Forest the lead, 1-0. That was, I think, towards the tail end of the first half. And then Tottenham Hotspurs hit the crossbar just before halftime. An attempt from, was it Matthias Tel? I think so. Yeah, it was Matthias Tel. It hit the crossbar. Oh, come on. Pape Matza. Don't know if the goalkeeper put his finger to it. Then Christian Romero decided to try and be dramatic. The goalkeeper got his fingertips to it. That's Martial's. Got his fingertips to it. Omari Hudson, Arsenal Academy graduate, went to Chelsea, ended up at Ipswich Town on loan, and they bought him. Then not Ipswich sold him to Nottingham Forest, I think for about what, 35 million quid? Really, Tottenham lost 3-0. Vicario had a couple of decent saves in the game. He had a couple of really, really decent saves in that game. So, oh my God. While I was giving you those results, I was watching something, and it's all football, because sometimes these are updates that come through, and when you're doing a live broadcast, it's the same way you do live TV. That it's like you literally have a producer speaking in your ear that could tell you anytime, be ready, we're going to switch topic, that this is happening. But yeah, 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. Like I told you, Igor Jesus, Morgan Gibbs-White, Timothy Awoni. I don't remember the last time he had scored for Nottingham Forest, by the way. I don't know how far it was, but it does feel like it was, long enough. But so those were the results from the Premier League Super Sunday, and here are the implications that Aston Villa moved within a point behind Manchester United. Finally, they won their first game in 5. Okay, they had won one in their last 5, beating up against Brighton, I think. So, was it? Yeah, beat Brighton. Brighton are one of those teams, the most informed teams. Anyways, so at 54 points now in 4th place, that means they are 5 points ahead of a 5th place Liverpool, which puts them in a really, really good place. And also about 6 points ahead of Chelsea. So then quickly, Tottenham Hotspurs have, like I said, following that defeat to Nottingham Forest, they slipped to 17th place, which is where they finished last season, by the way. They have 30 points, only 1 point behind West Ham United, who are in 18th place. So please bear that in mind. So anyways, then Burnley with 20 points and Wolverhampton Wanderers. So the actual relegation battle is between West Ham United, Nottingham Forest, Tottenham Hotspurs, Leeds United. Those are the teams that you must put there, because it's only 4 points that separate West Ham United in 18th place from Leeds United. Actually, yeah, from Leeds United in 15th place. So that's where the key battle is in that regard. So all teams other than Manchester City and Crystal Palace have played 31 games. All teams other than Manchester City and Crystal Palace have played 31 games. So that means all the 18 teams have 7 games left until the end of the season. And we're still waiting to see when that game in hand for Manchester City between Crystal Palace and Man City will be rescheduled to be played. But it cannot be played. It cannot be played in the next 2 weeks, because that's going to be the international break. Then it cannot be played immediately after the international break, after the first weekend of the international break, because Crystal Palace have a game in the UEFA Europa League. They drew Fiorentina in the quarterfinals of the UEFA Conference League. So they'll play the first leg that week of, I think, 6th April. 6th April should be. Yeah, 6th April. That is either, let me see, 7th, 8th, around 9th April. Then they'll play their weekend Premier League game, and then the subsequent week, they'll play the reverse fixture. So, in other words, Crystal Palace could have that game in hand against Manchester City be played in the week of between 21st April, which will be a Tuesday, and 23rd of April, which will be a Thursday. So around that period, maybe that's when the game will be rescheduled. We'll have to wait and see. So those are the results from today in as far as the Premier League is concerned. But Tottenham Hotspur, I'll be really, really surprised if Igor Tudor still has his job by the end of this international break, because he's managed the team through what, 6 games? He's lost 5. He's managed them through 8 games. He's lost 5. He's drawn 1 and 1-1. It's 7 games. So 7 games. Meanwhile, the second half is back for the Madrid Derby, and Kylian Mbappe is warming up. Maybe we'll get to see him on at some point, you know. Maybe we'll get to see him on. I think we'll see him on at some point. So yeah, that's the wrap for the Premier League. So let's quickly go to what happened elsewhere. Meanwhile, Inter Milan are leading against Fiorentina by 1-0. Let me see if I can try and access that game. It had eluded me. Oh, come on. It doesn't look like it's accessible to the forum that I thought I could find it. It's not there. It's entirely not there. So anyways, quickly, across the 5 major leagues in Europe, elsewhere, Barcelona beat Rayo Vallecano by 1-0. That solo goal by Ronald Araujo in the 24th minute was enough to win Barcelona the game. For the first time at the Camp Nou, they scored less than a goal in a game. So they scored 1 goal only in a game. Then Deportivo Alaves beat up against Celta Vigo by 4-3, while Athletic Bilbao beat up against Real Betis by 2-1. And the Real Madrid game is on. In the German Bundesliga, Mainz beat Eintracht Frankfurt by 2-1, while St. Pauli lost to Freiburg by 2-1. VfB Stuttgart beat Augsburg 5-2, while in the Italian Serie A, Como put 5 past Pisa. Then Atlanta beat up against Hellas Verona by 1-0, while Bologna lost to Lazio in a 2-0 defeat. AC Roma recovered from that midweek defeat against Bologna by 4-3 by beating Lecce by 1-0, and as we speak, Inter Milan are leading Fiorentina by 1-0. Fiorentina fighting against relegation. Then when you go to the French League 1, Olympique Lyon lost to AC Monaco by 2-1, while Olympique Marseille lost to Lille by 2-1. Paris FC managed to overcome Le Havre, beating them by 3-2, while Stade Rennes and Métis ended goalless. And then Nantes are leading up against Strasbourg by 2-1 as we speak. Briefly on the tables, meanwhile, in the Portuguese Primeira Liga, Benfica are yet to lose a game. This season, but they've drawn quite a number. So in the French League 1, PSG managed to move back at the summit of the standings following their 4-0 victory against Nice yesterday, a 10-man Nice. That means they restored that 1-point lead at the summit of the table. Really, they have a game in hand to play, so puts them in good position. So RC Lens come second with 59 points. So I'll leave that at that, the French League 1. Then in terms of the Spanish La Liga, the table, of course, the top 2 is Barcelona and Real Madrid. Barcelona at 73 points, Real Madrid at 66 points. Should they lose tonight, if they do win, they will move to 69 points, back to 4 points within Barcelona. But if they don't win, then Barcelona will stretch that lead. at the summit of the table in pursuit of defending the Spanish La Liga title, which I predicted they will defend this season. Meanwhile, if Atletico Madrid are able to beat Real Madrid tonight, because they still lead by 0-0, they will be moving within 6 points behind their arch nemesis. Let's see. There's a VAR check here. Looks like Brahim Diaz could be awarded a penalty. Yeah, he doesn't get the ball. He gets the man. That one could be awarded. So then in the German Bundesliga, we all know that it's Bayern Munich all the way. Yesterday, they beat somebody by 4-0. So in the German Bundesliga, it's a penalty. Real Madrid have been awarded a penalty, and Vinicius Jr. has stepped up to take it. Bayern Munich lead with 11 points. They have 70 points. Sorry, they lead with 9 points. They have 70 points. Really, second place, Borussia Dortmund has 61 points. VfB Stuttgart in third place with 53 points, while RB Leipzig come in fourth with 50 points, as well as a 50th placed Hoffenheim. Oh, beautiful penalty. It's 1-1. Real Madrid won, Atletico de Madrid won. So yeah, parity has been restored. And then in the Italian Serie A is where I wanted to return, because that result by Como was really, really, really brilliant against Pisa. What's his name? Nico Paz, among the goal scorers in that game. But yeah, that result is, the significance of that result is because Cesc Fabregas' side cemented or continued to put a strong hold on that fourth place on the Italian Serie A standings with 8 games left to play. That was match day 30. So they are ahead of Juventus by 3 points. So if they can keep up the good work, then we could see them in the UEFA Champions League next season. And remember, their objective this season was to finish within those European places. Last season, which was their debut campaign in the Italian Serie A, they finished 10th. So their objective was to finish either within the top 4, but if they had finished within 5th or 6th place, would be enough, because in the Italian Serie A, 5th place, and a place in the UEFA Europa League, 6th place, a place in the UEFA Conference League. So that would have been their objective. Now remember, the head coach or manager in Francesc Solar Fabregas is also a part owner in the club, as well as Thierry Henry in Como. So they're doing really, really well. In the summer, he was being tempted with offers from Inter Milan, and I can guarantee you that this summer, more clubs are going to return. I don't know if Inter will be sticking with Christian Chivu. I will have to wait and see. But any club that is out there searching for a manager will be out for him. Previously, there have been allegations linking him with a potential move to Real Madrid, but I think those ones are far-fetched. He's a Catalan. He's a Barcelona man, so I do not think he would go to Real Madrid, unless otherwise. I do not think so. I can't rule it out, but I'm saying the possibility of that happening is quite hard. It's quite it's quite minimal, really. Then teams like maybe Chelsea, with all the questions being raised on what's his name, Liam Rafinha in recent times, maybe they could look in Cesc Fabregas' direction. In fact, reports have suggested that should Liam Rafinha leave Chelsea at the end of the season, they could look to Luis Felipe, the former Chelsea left back, who also played for Atletico de Madrid. He's managing in the Brazilian Serie A, you know. Ali says, what a win for the mighty Villa today. So good to have McGinn and Tielemans back, and Champions League awaits for me. Hi, Ali. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, very, very big win for Villa. Oh, Real Madrid, what have you done? Fede Valverde has just scored to make it 2-1. What a brilliant goal. Fede Valverde on target. That's his fifth goal in a space of what, 2 weeks? Wow. It's pandemonium in that Santiago Bernabeu. Atletico de Madrid. Diego Simeone will be really, really disappointed because it was an intercepted back pass that he wins and places that ball into the corner. Beautiful, beautiful goal. So, yeah, I mean, the return of John McGinn is a stitch in time. And with Tillermans joining the party, really, it can only get better. The hope is to also have the likes of Boubacar Kamara back, But yeah, when you look at Tillermans, Yuri Tillermans returning, came on in the second half. It's really good news. It's really, really good news. You can only hope that Boubacar Kamara also returns. By the way, I do fancy Aston Villa to go really, really far in the competition in the UEFA Europa League. Meanwhile, Atletico de Madrid have made some changes, withdrawing Johnny Cardoso for Nico. Ademola Lookman has paved the way for Molina, while Antoine Griezmann has been withdrawn for Alexander Soroth. So those are the changes that have been made in the Madrid Derby for Diego Simeone's side. So for me, the return of John McGinn, we saw him score in the Europa League against Lille. So it's really, really good. Good. He's a decent servant of Aston Villa. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Anyways, guys, why don't you... Okay, Ali says we miss Kamara. Yeah, Boubacar Kamara has been quite a huge miss. Despite Aston Villa bring Douglas Luiz, he's not been a match to what Kamara was offering them because David Luiz has played in that role alongside Amadou Onana. But yeah, they've not given you the same thing. They've not given you the same chemistry. I think Ross Barkley is a good player in that role, but obviously there's a reason as to why Boubacar Kamara was a starter. There's a reason for that. The same way we've been talking about Kepa Arrizabalaga versus David Raya. It's in the same context. So guys, why don't you allow me wish you a blessed night? But I wish to say thank you so much to all our new subscribers, those of you that have recently joined the community. Thank you so much for choosing to be part of the Football Tribe UG community. We do appreciate you at great length for everything that you do. Love the stream. You always take your time with all the comments. I never miss a comment unless I skip it. And even when I do, oftentimes I go back through the comments just to make sure I never miss people's comments. Why? Because it's your feedback. You're the reason as to why I do this. If I come here and I talk to myself, then it won't make sense. So when you come back and we talk about your teams, we talk about the aspirations of your teams, it's good. It's why we come on here. And for me, I tip Aston Villa as one of the favorites to go on and win the UEFA Europa League. Not just because they have a decent team, but because of the manager, Unai Emery. He's won it 4 times. Thrice with Sevilla in 2014, 15 and 16. Then in 2021 with Villarreal, they beat Man United on penalties in the final. TT H Vision says another final lost by Arteta. How many finals has he lost? TT Vision. I think that's the first final he's lost. To be fair to him, it's the first final he's lost. It was his first final defeat, and he'll know. Arteta does not learn from his mistakes. What do you mean he doesn't learn from his mistakes, Titi? There, what do you mean by that statement? I remember, by the way, now that you say that, you reminded me of something that I wanted to say about his selection of Kepa Arrizabalaga. There's one time he was trying to explain, I think, why he bought David Raya or why they moved to get David Raya. And he said, or maybe prior, and he said that there had been 2 or 3 occasions when he needed to substitute a goalkeeper, but he couldn't. When he felt like substituting a goalkeeper, but he couldn't. Because I think to him, he did not have one better than the one that had started. Now, fast forward, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if that time you told us that, why then didn't you go with your number 1? Pedri says, well, he parked the bus in final, playing for a draw in a final. Parked the bus? No. I don't think he parked the bus. Anyway, it was your observation that he parked the bus. But allow me, or indulge me, give you my version of it. I don't think he parked the bus. When you watch the first half, very open-ended game, both teams attacking. In the first half, I really thought Arsenal were the better side, even though they did not create many chances. In the second half, Manchester City had majority of the ball. They were really, really dominant of the ball. That Arsenal had to really dig in and defend deep. And the challenge, because they defended as a collective, they ended up not committing any players up front to help them every time they regain possession. So at the end of the day, every time they cleared the ball, it just fell to the back 3 that Manchester City had kept around the center arc in Kushanov, Nathan Ake, and I think Matthias Nunes, because Nico O'Reilly was busy, in the overlaps, this side. So that's how I saw it. And again, after Manchester City got 2-0 up, you could see that in the moments after, I think, the 78th minute or thereabout, Arsenal regained possession. They were not the ones pushing Manchester City, even though they were not pushing them hard enough. They were not creating chances to trouble Manchester City and things like that, So, but I did not think he parked the bus. I did not think he played to draw. First of all, when you're playing a final, especially for a manager like Mikel Arteta, that is not played in many of them, because he's managed what? One final prior to today, that was the FA Cup final in 2020, and then 2 Community Shields, which are, curtain risers to the season. And he knew what it would mean, or what the implications would be if they had gone a goal down. And therefore, they defended well not to go a goal down until they get let down by their own goalkeeper. Basically, that's what it boiled down to. Because for as long as you're yet to concede, you are still in the game. And allow me to use this example, because it's one I've used before. Go back to last season when Manchester United were beating Manchester City by 2-1. Man City led that game, and Manchester City were playing well. But what Man United did well enough in that game was to stay in the game. Do not concede the second goal. And for as long as it's 1-0, you can always get an equalizer. Not always, but at least on more occasions than not, you have a chance that when you get an equalizer, you bring the game back to parity and take it on from there. So, in their low creativity, which is not unique to today's game, we have experienced that of Arsenal literally throughout the entire season in different games, depending on which opponents they are playing against. You saw that against Bayer Leverkusen in the first leg, and that was played in Germany. Arsenal lacked creativity. They did not create enough chances. So basically, for me, that's how I saw it, particularly in the second half. Somehow, so how should they have played in the second half? Again, first of all, in the second half, I thought, or at least I felt, that he needed to commit at least 2 players to be with Manchester City's defenders who are staying at the edge of the center line, so that whenever they played those long balls in a defensive manner, or in a way of defending their goal, they had somebody to receive or put those defenders onto pressure. But in the end, you had Nathan Ake, Kushanov, and their partner receive the ball under very little or no pressure at all, and then play it back to the Lodris, to Bernardo Silvas, finding the Ryan Chakis, and Manchester City continue with the pressure onto Arsenal's goal. It was that pressure that Arsenal eventually succumbed to, But for me, the entire Arsenal team were let down by their goalkeeper, because their objective during the period of trying to contain that pressure was stay in the game. And again, you could see the disappointment on Gabriel Magalhaes' face and William Saliba as soon as they conceded that goal, because they knew the goalkeeper should have done better in that moment, And given that it's a game of fine margins, if that goal doesn't go in, who knows what happens next? And the same way Mikel Arteta made reference to the only chance they had, particularly in the first half, that fell to Kai Havertz, for which James Trafford came out really well and saved. He said, we miss a chance, 1v1. If that goes in, maybe the story would have been different. So it's a game of small margins. It does not take away the fact that Manchester City, in the second half, were overall by far the better side. It was as simple as that. Arsenal failed to, and then when it came to the substitutions, I thought there are changes that he needed to make. Meanwhile, Atletico de Madrid have scored to restore parity. It's 2-2. What an unbelievable strike. Not even Diego Simeone does believe it. Like literally. So, Atiti says, we were getting battered in the second half. The goal for City was coming. Not having Eze or Odegaard hurt us in the transition, and our attack is just so weak compared to City. Now, on that part, I'll say this, because I've said it. I said it at the start of this broadcast, or sorry, at somewhere during this broadcast, because we dedicated the first 45 minutes or so to the Carabao Cup final. I don't know if Titi, please find time within your busy schedule and go back to this live after it is ended and watch the first 50 minutes, largely, or 45 minutes. That's between minute 5 and 50. We're talking entirely about the Carabao Cup final. But first of all, in missing Martin Odegaard, you can't blame Arteta on that one because it's an injury. Same thing with Eberechi Eze with the calf injury. So, and then he, like I said, he was forced to play Kai Havertz because he did not have a playmaker for that role. And there's an Arsenal forum I'm in. Somebody made the comment and a submission saying that Mikel Arteta is paying the sins for not trusting Ethan Nwaneri to play for him centrally in the attacking role of the midfield, that he lacked that person. He lacked that ability as a kind of person. He lacked that Martin Odegaard person. And that person who made that submission thinks that Ethan Nwaneri will be able to offer that. Now, in the end, he was forced to play Kai Havertz, who has not had the momentum. We know he's just returned from injury as well, and he's just trying to find his footing. He's just a guy trying to find his footing. Because, in fact, my opinion was, had Eberechi Eze been fit to play, he was going to play in that 10 role and Kai Havertz would have started the game. But because Eze was ruled out, he was forced to play Kai Havertz in that role. And he never quite delivered on it in the sense of the role itself. So I can't really blame him that much. And I remember making the suggestion that, he needed to withdraw Kai Havertz, which he did, and then he brought on Noni Madueke. So Bukayo Saka moved centrally. It did not work out, or it never felt like it was working out for Bukayo Saka. Still could not create anything out of that. Noni Madueke, when he came on, he did not have the momentum of the game. He did not create the impact that he had been brought on for. There came a time when I was asking for Max Doman to be brought on, because Mikel Arteta at that point had nothing to lose. You're in the 78th minute of the game. Your 2 goes down. There's nothing to lose for you, So he then withdrew Ben White, who was struggling in the second half against Jeremy Doku. So much so that he had that reckless foul on Ryan Cherki. So, and then Declan Rice moved there at right back. At that time, I remember us making the demand for Martin Zubimendi to be withdrawn so that Declan Rice stays in midfield as Arsenal's pivot, and then you add an extra attacking body, whether a Gabriel Jesus or, because I was thinking, and this was before they withdrew Leandro Trossard, I was thinking you take out Zubimendi, retain Trossard, move him in the middle or centrally, and then put Gabriel Jesus or Gabriel Martinelli to the wing and try to have more attacking bodies on there to help you with ball carries and things like that. But of course, he had different observations or different tactical assessments, and he made the decisions that he made when it came to the substitutions. So, but overall, I did not think that Arsenal played in such a conservative manner that sought to draw the game. To be fair, it was a game of very few chances. Manchester City had only 2 shots on target, only 2, and those were the 2 goals from, Nico O'Reilly. So what does that tell you? It tells you that Arsenal were really, really disciplined in how they defended, in how they protected their goal, or how they set up, especially when they were not having possession. They really did tremendously well. And then on the reverse, when going forward, they themselves did not help themselves much in creating enough chances, because you ought to create enough chances, or as many chances as possible, for you to try and score, especially when you're not having clinical forwards. Look at because I understand that it's not every day you're going to play good and create lots of chances. So if you do not create many chances, then you have to be very clinical with the few that you get. So Arsenal in the end had 3 shots on target. One, on another occasion, they hit a crossbar. Meanwhile, Vinicius Jr. scored, and it is 3-2. I don't know if Pedro is enjoying the Madrid Derby as I am enjoying it, but it's turning out to be quite the rout. Now we have 5 goals. Atletico de Madrid had just scored the equalizer just moments back. Pedro says, I do not think we should call Arteta the student anymore. It's been 7 years since he became Arsenal manager and left Manchester City. I don't know for you, Pedri, in your context, but I'll give you my context. Anywhere I meet a teacher that taught me, I am still a student that was taught by that teacher, because no matter how many years of experience I do gain, it never changes the fact that I was once their student. In other words, they are above me in the pecking order in terms of seniority. So, but meanwhile, Vinicius Jr.'s goal is just beautiful, sublime, and more so not up to the challenge. So that cannot change. It's the same way if, let's say, you went into a game, Carlo Ancelotti versus Zinedine Zidane. We know, he worked under him. So, and things like that. So, the Enzo Maresca, even when Mikel Arteta coaches for 50 years, and Pep Guardiola is still coaching, it's still the master versus the apprentice. It's just as simple as that. So, him being 7 years into management does not negate the fact that he is Pep Guardiola's student, So yeah, but thank you so much. But I understand where your sort of school of thought comes from. You're trying to make the point that by now Arteta should be standing on his 2 legs to say, I'm capable of winning, even if I'm pressed with my former master, I'm capable of doing a number on him and get the better of him and win something, I sort of understand where that is coming from, but look at it in the context that I've given as such. So Real Madrid are making amends. Brahim Diaz is coming off for Jude Bellingham. Eduardo Camavinga is one of those that are being introduced. So Brahim Diaz is off, and Adagula are the players that have been withdrawn. Looks like it's going a bit more compact, but Kylian Mbappe was also introduced earlier on. Guys, Pedri, help me understand. Why do Real Madrid staff, I don't know, usually you see the assistant coach, the head of medical, and all these other guys around the manager putting on suits while the head coach is not putting on a suit, and a few other guys. It's not something I've seen elsewhere in the Spanish La Liga. Among the coaches that put on suits, of course, always you will find Diego Simeone in a suit. But what's that about? Titi says you missed my comment. Sorry about that. Let's revert to it a bit. You say sorry, but Arsenal entire left side should take the criticism of being undone by City. There is no way Chucky's overlapping run was not part of Arteta's tactical brief. Again, we can't be honest to ourselves and say they're just better. They're just better. Sometimes, no matter how good you are, you're going to come up against a player that gets the better of you. I remember while Jeremy Doku was giving Ben White a lot of trouble, I made reference to his performance in the first leg in the Premier League when they met Liverpool, and they beat Liverpool by 3-0. He had a very stellar performance. And then, if you do remember, his performance against Real Madrid in the first leg, beautiful performance. He's not the kind of player that is going to give you that kind of performance game in, game out, But on a given day, when he rises, he's going to get past even the best of defenders. So, on the other side, particularly to the left side that you're highlighting, first of all, Piero Hincapié got a yellow card, and this was early on in the game. And as soon as he got that yellow card, you did feel, at least to a large extent, that he played with a certain sense of reservation, especially with how he went into challenges and physical duels. Meanwhile, Real Madrid have sustained a red card. Fede Valverde has been given a straight red card. It may be reviewed, since it is a straight red card, but I don't know the exact Atletico Madrid player on the floor. Oh, that's blatant. Guys, I'm a Real Madrid fan, but I can't argue against that. He has no attempt to play the ball. He plays the man, and he's coming in from behind. He's coming in from behind. I understand it's a derby. You must do whatever it takes to win. But you cannot be that blatant. You're the captain. How do players manage to lose their heads every now and then? I mean, I've seen these kinds of silly fouls, and I can never get past them. So, Titi, I was still talking about Pierre Hincapié. So, if you did observe him, as soon as he got as soon as he got that yellow card, he was very cautious going into physical battles, physical duels. He was reserved in the way he approached tackles and things like that. Why? Because he did not want to risk it. He knew he's already on a booking, that any other silly mistake, if he's led to a challenge by even a microsecond, it could get him a second booking and eventually sent off. And the last thing he would have wanted is cost his team by getting himself sent off, So he subconsciously, he had that at the back of his mind, and that sort of limited him exercising the physical bit of him and that aggressiveness that we're well accustomed to when it comes to, Pierre Hincapié. And I thought that Mikel Arteta was going to make that substitution very early in the second half or at the restart of the game. But it took longer than anticipated. And that's how, Hincapié went on defending. And you could see that the game was a bit difficult for him, It was a bit difficult for him. And yeah, you can't really blame him, because I for one do not want to blame him, because he knows what the implications can be when you have a player sent off in a final, and you're trying to win it, So that's what I felt, and that's why eventually they all struggled. So and then remember, today's in terms of helping these fullbacks in terms of defending, I thought those Arsenal forwards were not doing enough. I felt they could have done more. But when you look at the substitution of Pierre Hincapie, I'm trying to find out what minute it came, actually. But unfortunately, my source is not showing me what time what time it came, But I thought it should have come a bit earlier, But it didn't. It didn't. So yeah, that's where I could sort of find the problem with, Oh, Julian Alvarez just hit the upright. He just hit the upright. Anyways, guys, I think I've exhausted all the comments. Thank you, TTH Vision. Thank you, Pedri. Thank you, Ali. Thank you so much. Africa will never unite. Raymond Kangumba, Beverly. Thank you so much. You are with us earlier on. Sechitoleko Hassan. It was a pleasure having you around. Guys, allow me to wrap it up here and wish you a blessed night. Let's link up again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We'll talk more about the loss. It's going to be the international break, so you know how boring the international break can be. So, but we'll hope for better. So we'll have more time to digest all that and a little more in that regard. So have a blessed night. Enjoy the rest of the Madrid Derby. Unfortunately, I cannot see it out in terms of this broadcast because I need to go and rest. Okay. As if I'm not going to watch it to its logical conclusion. Of course, I'm going to watch it to its logical conclusion. But I'm thinking I should sign out. It's been 1 hour and 48 minutes, or close on to 48 minutes since we've been on here. Vinicius Jr. is now donning the armband. Julian Alvarez very close to making it 3-3. What a turn. What a strike. Beautiful. Anyway, let's first see this free kick moment for Real Madrid before we sign out. Before we call it a night. Alexander Trent-Arnold. Saved by the goalkeeper. Oh. Looks like it hit the upright. Wow. Twice Real Madrid have hit the upright. So, anyways, unless you guys have any other question or comment to make, I want to call it a night. These are remaining 8 or 6 or something odd minutes. I'll watch for my own pleasure. Have a blessed night, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.